in what is a life-changing story for me, the Netziv, Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, tells that when he was 12 years old, he walked by the window and he heard his father crying about how his son Naftali would be a Talmud Chacham, how he would grow to be a Ben Torah. He's a good kid, he's a great kid, but he just doesn't sit and learn. And Naftali was so moved by his father's tears that he ran in, he hugged his father, and he said, Tati, stop crying. I'm going to start learning. I commit. I'm going to be a Talmud Chacham. And sure enough, he turns out to be the Netziv. The Netziv said that when he would have reached 120 years old, he would have gone to Shemayim, Hashem would have said to him, Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, where is your parish on Chumash? Where is your parish on the Shiltas of Rav Hai Gaon? And all the other unbelievable Sfarim that he wrote on Chumash and Gemara. And he would have answered Hashem, what are you talking about? I was a great Eved Hashem. I kept Shabbos with all the Chumras. I benched Birchas Hamazon with Kavana. I never missed a minyan, and on of all the great things he would have done. And he would have been right. But then Hashem would take him into the back room, and there are Sfarim, there are books on the shelves from floor to ceiling, from wall to wall. And Hashem takes him over to the section where it says Netziv on the binding. He would have opened up the pages of those Sfarim and they would have been empty. The Netziv said, now that we know, or now that I know what I could become, so who would have been right? Of course, Hashem would have been right. He filled his potential because of that moment that he walked by the window and he saw his father crying. In this week's Parsha, Parshas Naso, the Torah juxtaposes the Parsha of the Sota of a woman who's suspected of inappropriate behavior, together with, right next to, the Parsha of the Nazir, the one who forbids himself from drinking wine and from cutting his hair. Rashi asks the famous question, Lama Nismecha Parshas Nazir, the Parshas Sota. Why does the Torah put the two Parshios, the two sections together? Lomar Lecha, to tell you that Mi Shera Sota Bil Kilkula, that somebody who sees the Sota in her demise, if she blows up, if she's guilty, so Yaser Atzma Minayayin, he should take a pledge to not drink wine. He should make sure to separate himself from wine. A very simple question somebody could ask is, wait a second. Can you imagine, we're standing in the base of Mikdash, can you imagine that the Sota, her stomach blows up, she collapses right there, and that person, that's the one who's going to need to take on a commitment to not drink wine? Wouldn't the mere vision of the Sota in her explosion, in her tragic end, wouldn't that be enough for him to say, whoa, I better behave, I better control myself, I better not overdo the wine? But maybe what Chazal are telling us is that in our lives, we have huge moments. We could see something really inspirational. But if we don't translate that into a commitment of doing something day in, day out, so eventually the vision, the inspiration from that huge moment, eventually that will dissipate. The Netziv saw his father crying. He ran right away to the Beis Medrash. He started right away the next day. He started building himself into a Talmud Chacham. He made a commitment, I want to be a Talmud Chacham. His Har Sinai moment of being inspired, he knew that wasn't enough. He had to translate that into activity right away. Same thing with the Nazir. That the one who sees the Sota, the one who has a Har Sinai moment, the one who has a huge inspiration, that's the one who needs to immediately translate that into a pledge, into a commitment, a resolution of what I'm going to do. So as we had the Chag of Shavuos, the Chag of Shavuos doesn't celebrate Torah. We can celebrate Torah, the finishing of Torah, we celebrate that by Simchas Torah. This is Zman, Matan, Toraseinu. The celebration here is the Kabbalah HaTorah. Hashem giving us the Torah and our accepting the Torah. Our saying Naso v'Nishma, our commitment to Torah, unconditionally. For us as well. We're not just commemorating the fact that our ancestors, once upon a time, thousands of years ago, committed to doing the Torah, but we also, on Shavuos morning, whether we're listening to this before Shavuos or we're hearing this after Shavuos, for us, Shavuos morning was a commitment. Hashem whispered in our ears, my son, Torah is awesome. Do you want it? And the question is, what's our response? Is our response going to be Naso v'nishma? And more importantly, especially in the month of June, which sometimes as the weather's getting nice, sometimes, and maybe we finished our routine, our schedule of yeshiva, can we make a commitment following the Kabbalah Torah after we had acceptance of the Torah? So what new resolution am I going to take on? Am I going to try to learn more seriously, more focused? Am I going to try to remember, make a kinyan on my learning? Am I going to take on a new Masechta? Am I going to have a new Chavrusa? Am I going to wake up early? Am I going to go to sleep late? Am I going to carve out time in the middle of my day? Where is my Kabbalah Torah going to be? Now is the time of year. This is the time of year of Kabbalah Torah, of having a vision, having a dream of what we could look like vis-a-vis Torah. What's our relationship with Torah? How we love Torah, how we accept Torah. What are we going to do? What's our Yazir Atzmo? What are we going to commit to vis-a-vis Torah so that by this time next year, we could be more advanced in our Torah learning, more committed, more passionate about our Torah learning. Here at Zman HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help us take this Zman Matan Toraseinu to make a commitment that when we see a Har Sinai moment, when we have a Har Sinai moment, we have a Har Sinai on Shavuos, that we should be able to translate that into something tangible, something practical, something real, that we now better ourselves, we're progressing, we're advancing in terms of our Torah. Have a great Shabbos, and if relevant, have a great Yom Tov.